All right. Hello, everyone. I'm recording this on April the 4th. Going to continue on with Dark Age Europe. To say today, we're going to be going over this. I want to record these all in one day. I'm extremely lazy. Also, I just got done watching that darn Tiger show on Netflix, and I lost about 25 IQ points. But since I can't get a haircut till probably June, I'm probably going to grow me a mullet. But the feudal system arises after the fall of the Roman Empire, and some of you are probably familiar with some aspects of the feudal system due to, things like knights and kings and queens, and some of you ever watched Monty Python. It's the Holy Grail. But after the collapse of Rome in 476, as we stated earlier, order in Europe has fallen apart, and a bunch of the land is up for grabs. And typically, whoever is able to capture the most land is the most powerful, because in order to gain the land, you typically have to have an army, you have to be able to pay people, and it's just like with the advent of civilization back in the Neolithic era, whoever has the most land is typically in charge. But these relationships form between the higher castes of society and the lower castes of society. And what starts to happen is kings, there are some queens, but typically it's kings. Sorry, ladies, history is incredibly sexist. But the kings give land for people to rule, because much like the ancient Persians with their bureaucracy, one person can effectively rule such a large kingdom just by themselves. So what happens is kings give land to lesser nobles, who then entrust protection of the land to knights, who then you have peasants to work the land. But people just need order and protection, because with the collapse of the Roman Empire, the centralized military collapses, and people need to be able to not get stabbed to death, which no one really enjoys doing. Getting stabbed sounds kind of horrible. So you get this pyramid, and yes, you need to learn this pyramid. Next year, we're going to be going over this when we go over the estate system in France, and the French Revolution, and the Enlightenment, and all that shenanigans. Nearly cussed right there. Gonna have to put myself in timeout if I do. But everything revolves around the land. So, pieces of land given by the monarch to, monarch also means king. Land given to lesser nobles is called a fief or a fief. You can say it any way you want to. There are no rules. Society is collapsing. Burn your parents. But the king gives land to the nobles, and the nobles' responsibility is to give money to the king, because the king needs money for himself, and he needs money to pay for the army. And the people that are given the land are called vassals, and they're vassals because they swear an allegiance to the king. They promise to support the king, they promise to give the king men for combat, all that shenanigans. And then below everyone else are the peasants or the serfs. Serfs are just the people who are bound to the land. It's not that they work for the land or they work for their noble. They literally cannot leave the land without the Lord's permission. They can really only marry people within the manor that they're in, the manor being the small community. And the peasants give food and money and themselves in the form of military service, not dirty things. Prima nocta, the right of the king to sleep with a woman on her wedding night, that's mostly myth. Braveheart's not that historically accurate. Since I'm not there in class to have 90 minutes to waste, I can't grip the podium and scream at you about how horrible and inaccurate Braveheart is. But the peasants give money and land and military service to people above them. And I haven't mentioned the knights yet. Knights are just the military class. They're kind of like the samurai in Japan. Knights are raised at a young age to learn how to fight. They start at the age of 7 when they become varlets. At the age of about 13 or 14, they become squires. And after they prove themselves in combat, then they may become knights. But knights are very expensive, and knights fight as heavy cavalry. Heavy cavalry is just like heavy infantry. So you have lots of armor, you have big, heavy weapons, but you're just on a horse. And this is how things go. You'll sometimes see the pyramid with or without the Pope. The Pope has authority over everyone, but the Pope isn't always powerful. And it gets to the point in the 1200s where there are two popes. You have the Pope and the anti-Pope. We're not going to go over that. That's really confusing. I never went over it in college. I didn't pay attention until I was like a junior, so don't ask me about anything I learned the first 2 years. And the manorial system. I wish. Oh, that's right. The pretty pictures over here. But the manorial system. The manorial system is just a town. These manors are just self-sufficient towns. So imagine that Ralph Northam, the governor of Virginia, is the king of Virginia. And so what you would have is you'd have these small mini micro kingdoms, or like duchies or provinces within Virginia. So like Allegheny County would have a lead noble. And then there would be and then imagine like Covington and Clifton and Selma and Iron Gate and Crows as like a manor. So pretty much a manor is just a town. It's not just a really fancy house. And this is an example of a medieval manor. So this right here is the manor house. The manor house might be just a fortified house, or it might actually be a castle for larger towns. Over here you have the church. Church is very important because the Catholic religion is very important to the people's lives in town. And pretty much the rest of the town is just the serfs and the farms, and you might have people who practice trades, such as blacksmithing. You might have a cooper who makes barrels, but pretty much everyone farms. That's how it always is. Everyone's typically farmers. And with the manor system, the castle is very important because there's with the advent of large-scale raids by Vikings and just barbarians returning, people tend to go to the castle when they get attacked, not to die. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Very straightforward. Sorry, this is kind of boring. Like I said, I've dropped about 30 IQ points because I've spent the last 3 days binge watching a show about a polygamist man who smokes meth and owns tigers. Yeah, I'm just going to end it there if I can figure out my computer.